the finished product as we're putting it in the box. It looks pretty good. Good enough to eat. We're finished with the carrot cake. I've already made the frosting for the red velvet because you've already seen me do it. The only thing I did differently for this red velvet cake is I added pecans into the icing itself. That makes it really delicious because there are no nuts in these cake layers, but it also makes it a little bit more difficult to frost. So we'll have to kind of take our time with that. We've pulled out icing so that we can do some decoration at the end without the nuts. They won't go through the piping bag, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. We have our first layer on its cake round on the turntable, and we will start just like we did before. We'll put a big glob of icing. We certainly can't be too rough with this because the pecans in here would tear that cake apart if we're not careful. So we'll have to ice this one a little bit more carefully. It also won't look quite as finished because the nuts give it a rough look rather than the smoothness of the plain icing. Again, I'm not too worried about the bottom. We're going to put some dollops at the bottom with our piping tip, so it's going to be a little messy around the bottom anyway. We also can't use the bench scraper to smooth this one because, again, of the pecans that are in the icing. But it's all worth it to have them in there. They taste so good in there. Remember, we toasted those pecans the other day. We just toasted a whole bunch. So we're still using our the toasted pecans that we used the other day. All right, we almost got the first layer done. Look at that. We're going to add our second layer here in just a second. Let me get just a dollop of icing right there. All right. You stay right here. I'm going to get my second layer. Layer number 2. I've had these frozen. It makes it much easier to ice if the layers are frozen. So I did that. They've been in the freezer for the last couple of days. Icing up here. I saw somebody the other day, and I forgot to do this. Use the ice cream scoop to put the icing out here. I think that's a great idea. I forgot. You know, we're creatures of habit, and this is just the way I've always done it. But I'll try to remember that next time because I think it would make it easy to scoop this icing out onto the top of the cake. You can see that those pecans make it a little bit more challenging. That's okay. That is okay. We want to make sure we save enough to do that top layer. All right. So we're going to go, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like when we get ready to start decorating. The cake is basically iced. It's completely covered in this icing with the pecans mixed in. Now we're going to do a little bit of decorating, so I'll be back in just a minute. We're going to add a little bit of decoration to this cake. What I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to use this big star tip that I used on the other one, and I'm just going to alternate a white one and a red one. I didn't have the very best of food coloring, so this is not really red. It's kind of a bright pink, but it is what it is, right? So we're going to do the white first. Skipping spots so we can go back with the red. Well, that won't turn. I have to turn the turntable. when you're putting food coloring and icing, you need to be sure that you color enough to do what you're going to do, because you can never go back and food color it again and make it the same color. So I've learned, make extra. You'd rather have too much than to run out and not have enough. So let's go back and fill in with our red or pink, whatever you want to call it, and then we'll do the top. We're not going to put any pecans on top of this cake because the icing is full of pecans. So we don't want to put pecans on the top, probably. That does look pretty nice. I'm pretty happy. It's very holiday. It almost looks more Christmassy than Thanksgiving-y, but it's red velvet. That lends itself more to the pink and the white than it does to the orange, like we did the carrot cake. So we'll go. I'll come back and show you the finished product. The finished product, as we're putting it in the box, it looks pretty good. Good enough to eat.